This is SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of SaaS Therapy. I am Casey Trujillo, and I am without my partner, Todd Kirk, today. Todd, it's the summer months. He's out on vacation, serving his sentence with a family reunion. He wasn't a great kid this year, so Santa Claus made him do that this year. So we're missing Todd. Todd, if you're listening, we wish you were here with us. But we have two amazing guests. I have Zach and Will with us. Zach, why don't you go first, introduce yourself, and then Will.
Yeah, I'm Zach, the founder and CEO of SteerCo, which is a new company that creates your QBRs, account reviews, and success plans for you.
Awesome. Will?
I'm Will Aha. I'm the co-founder and COO of SteerCo, and I'm mostly in charge of the operations side.
Okay, so one of my favorite things is finding guests for the show, and I was actually met Zach and Will at the Gainsight Pulse conference. Everybody was at their booth talking to them, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting in what they're doing. Zach and Will, just so you know, our most listened to and downloaded podcast is one that we did on best practices in QBR. So when I saw that's what your software, enables people do, it's the major pain point of any customer success manager. I'm like, okay, I got to get these guys on the podcast. But before we get there, Will, Zach, I don't know, you guys can decide who wants to take this question, or you guys can just both talk about it. How did you come up with this idea? Explain a little bit more about what your company is all about, and then how did you come up with this idea? How did you get here to where we are today?
Yeah, I have been in customer success for about 12 years now. So I started my career more so doing a version of customer success, selling power tools to Home Depot, Lowe's, Fastenal. Okay. It was right out of college. And I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, but that company was a fantastic company to work for because it was DeWalt, the big yellow truck.
Yep.
They were great because they taught me how to take something really complex, like a drill or an impact driver, and break it down into something really simple for the contractor to understand. They don't really care about like the torque or the RPM. They care about how quickly they're going to get their job done. So that was really, really fun. And it was a really cool experience just to learn how to take something really complex and break it down into something really simple. And then I migrated over into tech, and that's where I got my first customer success manager title. And I was calling on accounts and, selling something complex like sales analytics software to, VPs of sales and CEOs. It was fun to take that complex to simple methodology and move it over into something that was a little bit more my speed, something I really liked. I liked doing, and I was hooked from the very first, QBR that I did with a customer. I just loved the interaction. I loved asking the questions. Really cut my teeth there. I started leading the team at that company. I started the customer success department at two startups after that. I then moved into a publicly traded SaaS company where I managed about 200 million in revenue and about 40 different customer success managers and enterprise deployments. And it was awesome. But as customer success started to evolve, the departments across the industry really started to feel the crunch where, there's more accounts and companies are realizing, we really can't keep hiring CSMs
right
in this linear function. But rather than, figure out, what kind of tools can we give and what kind of operational efficiency can we try to gain? Let's just see how many accounts a CSM can take before they break. And so we figured out some really creative solutions, but one of the biggest bottlenecks that I saw when I was managing this team was, doing the homework so that you can do your job was really, really expensive from a time perspective.
Yeah.
And about, 2 years ago, ChatGPT started to come out and really gain steam. The AI movement really started to take over. And I started to realize that there was tech that existed that could ultimately do a lot of this prep work for you as a CSM. And newsflash, CSMs really don't like doing the prep work before the call. Almost every CSM or go-to-market person loves talking to customers and loves breaking down ideas and talking about strategy and trying to figure out like, what's the next step. Nobody loves spending 8 hours building a deck and reformatting the text and making sure the images all line up and they have the same size. It's brutal. And it's even worse if you have to work on that exact same deck with like 3 other people.
Right.
It's really, really hard. And so we were left with a choice when we were doing it at this company, which was, do we do QBRs for everybody and just templatize them all? Or do we pick and choose just a few accounts, maybe the ones that ask for them, maybe the ones that spend a lot of money, maybe the ones that are references for us, and maybe we just do QBRs for them, and maybe we do annual business reviews for the other ones. And so I started really exploring this idea of maybe there's tools or tech out there that can help us. There wasn't. And so, Will and I had gotten reconnected. Fun story. Will and I actually went to college together. And he moved back to the state that I live in, Arizona, said, hey, we should get coffee. And we were getting coffee once a week. And I was throwing this idea to him. And he's like, hey, I really think you should chase this down. There's something here. And he was kind of one of the first people that at like 5:30 in the morning, I was showing it's like bad idea to her, that what I thought was maybe a terrible idea. And he's like, I don't know, man, I think there's something here. And I started showing it around and people were kind of picking up what I was putting down. So earlier this February, both Will and I were like, let's just go for it. Let's see what we can do.
So Will, you're at this coffee shop. This is the part I love about the podcast because I want to get into stories. And it's funny, Zach, you mentioned DeWalt. It was one of the things that first trained you about how to be a good customer success manager.
Yeah.
I just had on the podcast Kelly Hall. She's the CCO of QuickBase. I think they're a $600 million organization. She said, everything I learned about customer success, I learned at McDonald's, working the drive-thru. So it's awesome. I love when you relate things like that to get to know you and how these things started to shape you. Will, you're hearing this at a coffee shop. Are you really all in? Are you really thinking this is a great idea? What's going through your head as you're hearing this? Is you're like, does Zach think I'm rich and he's just wanting money? Like, what's the first thoughts that are going through your head as he's saying this? Because I do believe in this quote that there is, you need to seize, You need to seize the opportunity of the life of a lifetime in the lifetime of the opportunity, right? Like there's these things that get presented to you and there is a window to go after it. Will, how did you recognize it? Walk us through your thought process. This is a fun part of the show.
Yeah. So it lined up so well with the philosophy that I had about the go-to-market space because I had started working for a publicly traded company that sold manufacturing equipment. I worked on the sales side. And I really became obsessed with this idea of how do we make things more efficient? Because it used to drive me crazy. Being part of these big sales orgs, we'd be sitting there and say, Q1 sales are down. So everybody off the road for a week so we can sit in a room and talk about how to make sales better. And I was like, what are we doing? Like, why is no one just going out and selling more? Like, it's obvious that's what we need to do. Or sitting in meetings for the sake of checking a box. And it just bugged me that corporate lifestyle kind of forced that because that's what the MBA study of the week said to do. That's what all the textbooks said to do. You got to have these meetings, you got to have these objectives. And I started the first part of my career seizing on a similar opportunity because my mentor was out sick and he needed me to deliver some demo equipment to a client, which that was even crazy in itself because I lived in Philly. My car had been broken into the night I was supposed to deliver this demo equipment. And it's 2 Pelican cases of these controllers for manufacturing facilities that each controller is over $100,000. I mean, they're so expensive. And I, being a very young out of college person, left them in my car because that seems like the right thing to do. And the person that broke into the car stole everything but the controllers. Like they opened it up, looked at the controller, said, I don't know what that is. And then they proceeded to use a crowbar, rip every button off of my car. I mean, just trashed it, broke every window. So I got a rental car, dropped off these suitcases full of this equipment at this really small engineering startup. And I walked in, the owner answered the door barefoot, which was kind of like his thing that he did. And I thought I was being punked because I walked in, he sat me down and he said, we need a salesperson. Do you want to come work for us? And I thought he was joking. I'd never even met him before. But it was a really good opportunity. I seized on it. I learned everything that I know about RevOps from that. Got a chance to participate in a private equity transaction. We sold the company, merged it with 3 other companies. So something that stuck out for me during that time was this idea, it's similar to what you said, that there's going to be opportunities that come along that are once in a lifetime, and you have to go and try it. And so when I was meeting with Zach for coffee, he was explaining to me the customer success side, which I didn't understand that portion because I was more on the sales. I was frontline, go to market, and then I had a team that handled customer success afterwards. But I bought into the idea that the sales organization that I had ran on just ops steroids. So we researched every one of our competitors. We knew who they were hiring, what they were doing, where they were in. We knew every one of our clients' acquisitions they were making. I worked on the pharma side. So drugs that they just had that were approved, things that they were working on, murmurs from the street sort of things. And we just combined that into this, like, let's target people right whenever we need to. But it was so time consuming, and we spent so much time in meetings. And then after the private equity transaction, we spent more times in meetings. And so when Zach was talking to me, I heard what he was saying about customer success, but what I really heard was there's an opportunity to take away this tedious work that takes away from actually selling and actually expanding contracts and actually doing the things that increase revenue. And that's, if we can solve that and we can give time back to people, not to fill with more busy work, but to go execute and to go actually do what it is their position's meant for and better their team and better the company. I was all in on that. So when he was saying like, oh, I don't know, I was like, you should definitely do it. You've got 3 kids. I have a newborn. I have a toddler. It's the best time to start a company, right now.
Yeah, right.
We've got all this, just like, let's go for it. So it really, really worked out well.
Well, I know my audience is like dying to know a little bit more about how you could automate some QBRs, because there's all this data that we ran. Like 78% of customer success managers spend their time doing product training. That's crazy, right? And so how do you ever have the time to actually get strategic? And then if you have to go prepare for QBRs, Zach, you did a great job about outlining that. But before we get there, Zach, where are your emotions? Where are your feelings in this startup? Like, I'm sure it's up and down and up and down. And one day it's like, hey, we are conquering the world. The next day is like, oh man, did we make the right decision? Where are you guys at today? Where's your mindset? And how do you keep your mindset right? Like, let's get into this, because I've always wanted to go do this. So maybe this is more SaaS therapy for myself, to go out there and do something on my own. Where are you at today? How do you keep a good mindset? What are some best practices that you rely on?
Yeah, Will, where are you today? Let's talk about that. You go first. I want to hear where you're
super fussy newborn, not sleeping a lot. So that's where I am at today. But no, seriously, it's one of the most rewarding things that I think anyone can do if you're committed to it. It's not easy. I think the thing that people make a mistake with starting companies is they think that starting a company is filing for your company in Delaware, creating a website, getting a cool logo, and you're off to the races. And that's arguably the easiest part of building any company. And being able to be there and build structure and see problems and pivot. And I think that pivot portion is the most rewarding, because when we originally started, we were building this from the buyer side up. So our original idea was like, we should give buyers the power to drive their own QBRs and drive their own data, drive their own interactions. And that pivot for us to then say, actually, we just built something for customer success and salespeople, allowed us to accomplish the thing that's the most rewarding, which is we build a tool that people actually want to use. And that building portion and that reward portion of a startup, I think is arguably the most fun. There's definitely tough times. Like, you get a lot of no's. You got to be used to doors getting shut in your face, but there's so much of the rewarding and those aha moments. Like, you probably saw at our booth, we had people that were like, well, I don't think that your software can do that. Run this thing. And then it did. And they're like, I cannot believe that it did that. Yeah. That piece of it is one of the coolest parts, and wearing a lot of hats. I mean, we have done everything from build the structure of how it is that we're going to go attack clients to buy the monitors for our small office that we have, and being able to do those variety of tasks, especially with someone that you're friends with, is really neat.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to ask you one follow-up question, Zach. I'm going to go to you on this. One thing I want to call is Will is so dedicated to this business that at the Gainsight Pulse conference, their theme was all around Wicked. Will wore this horrible like hat. This like the person, I don't even know the people's names, but he wore like the witch's hat the whole time. He would not take that thing off. That's how dedicated he was. Will, is there a book you would recommend to the audience that keeps you? That's kind of basically your Bible to what you're doing and who you are? Is there something that you read all the time that, like, this is my book that helps me keep that mindset?
To Sell is Human. That is one of my absolute most favorite books that I've read. There's some other ones by Robert Cialdini or Caldini. I don't know how it's pronounced. He's actually an ASU professor. He wrote some psychology of sales books, but that's to sell as human is fantastic. Awesome. Yep.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate that. Zach, where are you at in your mindset and how do you keep it?
Yeah, I think that there's the hard part about the business is not really the business aspect of it, which surprised me. You think you look at these titans of industry and sure, they're probably very good at understanding where the market's going and where they need to attack and where they need to pull back and all that stuff. All that strategy stuff makes a ton of sense. But I think that the hardest part is the emotional swings that you take. Yeah. I mean, there will be a meeting you go on, especially this early, and I've had someone tell me, this is going nowhere. Like, what are you doing? You've wasted people's money and time. Thank you so much for that. Right. And it's like, okay, great. And then right after, you get somebody who just gets it and they're like, oh, this is amazing. I had someone, curse on the phone today saying like, holy F, like, this is amazing that what you guys have created, and so you have this very polarizing opinion of what it is that you're doing. And I think people also, they like to project their own feelings about what you're doing onto you. Fair. And so there are a lot of people who, they may or may not get the product, but they're excited about what you're doing. And so they're like, I want to help you do whatever it is because I can't figure out how to get to where you are. So it's really cool that you did it. And then there are other people that are just straight up resentful about it and they project that too. And so that you feel that too. So I think that the hardest part that I've had to deal with is those interday emotional swings. And I think over the past few months, I've really started to understand like just how to keep things level. I had somebody tell me once that nothing's ever as good as it seems and nothing's ever as bad as it seems. And that seems to really just help keep things rock solid as much as humanly possible. Because the business stuff, Will and I can chat through like who's our next hire and what's the most pivotal thing that we need to do, what's the market we need to go after, who's our ICP, those kind of questions are really, really fun. It's when you start showing your baby to the world and a lot of people are like, I don't know, I don't get it. And what's been really fun is when you're trying to understand your ideal customer profile, you talk to a lot of people who are not your ideal customer profile. And if you're not careful, you can over index and think, well, that person was supposed to be the person that I thought I was going to sell to, and they just didn't get it. What am I doing with my life? If you can take that data point and just say, okay, I'm getting this trend where maybe that's not the person. I'm still believing what I'm doing, but maybe that's actually not the person I'm trying to help. Maybe that person's over here. And maybe that person's over here. And then you also have to be wary of the people who aren't your ICP, who also like what you're doing. And is that just some shiny object you need to go chase, or do you need to pull back? And it's a very, the emotional toll of all of it is fascinating. And it's been fun to figure out how to just level out. I actually work with an executive coach weekly who helps me kind of break down a lot of these thoughts and emotions and trying to figure out where to go next. It's not really a strategy session. It's much more of like, how do I process all the data points that I've gone through over the past week? And that's been really, really helpful.
Zach, that's amazing, man. And again, the reason why we're doing this, for our audience, this is SaaS Therapy, because in my opinion is every one of us owns our own business. I might not be a startup like the two of you and be CEO and COO, but I own a business and I have a brand, and I'm every day selling to the people that I work with, right? I'm working with them. And so I want people to understand this, because if you're not understanding how these two are working and what they're thinking about, you're just clocking in. You're almost emotionally checking out of a business if you don't feel that this is your business, if that makes sense. Zach, Will, I love it. Okay, let's now actually dive into what you're doing, what you came up with. I'm going to give you my version of it in overhearing you give a pitch 1,000 times over at the conference. What I'm understanding that you're doing is you're using data that a customer success manager has. You're tying into whatever data there is. You're pulling that out, giving a starting point, going out, getting insights that's out there on the internet, and putting that all together to give a starting point for a CSM to start to say, okay, I have data and insights from what I have. I have data and insights from what's out there, combining it all together. And now I have something to work with, which is probably pretty amazing than what I could come up with on my own. But then I could massage it and do some different things with that. All done in seconds. Zach, Will, is that right? Correct me where I'm wrong. And the main goal is what you're trying to do is help that customer success manager come into a meeting, have a very sharp presentation that's being both tactical and strategic, and a starting point to talk to that I didn't have to invest 4 hours in creating this QBR. So that's just what I overheard. I know I'm very off in some of these things. So Zach, Will, one of you take it and correct me where I'm wrong or add to.
I'll let Zach add to it, but one thing I will start with is the improvement from your first pitch back to us of what we did. When you offered to hold down our booth so that we could go eat and I could take that hat off. And I think your pitch was, it's AI.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way there.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah,
Zach,
Casey,
go ahead.
you nailed it. Actually, that was pretty good. Yeah, we've learned too that the message that resonates most with people is truly we create the assets that you hate creating. So when your boss comes up and asks you, "Hey, how's that account doing?" and you immediately tense up because you haven't talked to them in 2 weeks, even though you know why you haven't talked to them in 2 weeks. You've had other stuff you've had to do and whatever. But now you think your boss is judging you because you don't know right off the top of your head how they're actually doing. And by the way, your boss really is just curious. They're probably going to go see them at a meeting, So we wanted to give you a tool to be able to click a button, hand them a sheet of paper that says, here's how they're doing. Here's how much they pay. Here's what they're running into in the market. Here's their churn risk. Here's their growth opportunity. Here's some quick news articles about them. We wanted you to be able to click a button and see that. So it's not just, the QBR aspect of it, which is massive. We felt there was a whole process of assets that CSMs had to build on the fly that we could automate using very similar data points. And so you're absolutely correct. We take all the relationship data that you have with your customer, emails, phone calls, support tickets, product usage, which is a big one. Anything that comes from your CRM or your CSP, we can integrate that into our platform. And then we also take that and we marry that with what's happening outside of your relationship, which is something that I used to coach a lot of CSMs to do anyway, which was, hey, before you go into a meeting with this with this customer, let's say it's for a QBR, make sure you go out and you listen to their earnings call or read the earnings call transcript and figure out what it is that they're focused on. Read the annual letter to shareholders that the CEO put out. Go look at their website for what products they just released, what press releases are out there. That takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Customer success manager's like, yeah, I'll get that done after I get these 60 other KPIs that you gave me. Yeah, never doing that.
Exactly. And I had a really, really great manager of customer success. One of our team managers, she came up to me, her name's Sarah. She came up to me and she goes, listen, what you're saying is not wrong. We should be doing all of that. Here's the trade-off. We can only do so many. And in my mind, I'm like, the technology exists to be able to compile it. And she challenged me. She's like, no, it doesn't. And there wasn't a tool out there that would do it. And everyone was really focused on just the relationship between customer and company. That was it. And what I had learned throughout my, decade plus is that there's a lot of external factors you can't control that you just need to be aware of, so maybe there's an M&A activity that's happening at your customer and they're not focused on the efficiency gains that they can get by using your software. They're focused on integrating this brand new culture from this other company into their team. Instead of talking to your implementation, you should be talking about how can that team also be infused into what you're talking about, right? So instead of trying to get just a project moving forward, you should be talking about growth opportunity. And there's a lot of times that CSMs miss that too. So I really think that that's where we've started to shine, is just being able to become the CSM's assistant, really. Awesome. And create all of these assets so that you can shine. You can do what you're supposed to do. A lot of times we hire CSMs and we don't realize it, but we're hiring personality hires. We're hiring people who know how to talk to customers and get people excited and explain things really simply. That might be why, you mentioned earlier how much time they spend educating people on the product. It's because they know how to. They know how to take something really complex, break it down into something really simple, and give it to the customer. And that is something we should lean into our CSMs. We should not be leaning into them on creating these really nice presentations and documents. We should have them presenting those and talking about them, because that's what they're really, really good at.
Zach, I don't know if you arranged this in perfect timing, but for those of you watching this, not just listening to the podcast, there is this ray of sunshine on Zach that as he's talking, he's like a prophet, like it's just like glowing on him. So however you did that at that perfect time, that was inspirational. You know, one of the things I coach customer success managers on is they say the data says that an average customer, so let's throw out PepsiCo. Again, we're just going to throw out some big company or Progressive Insurance. They usually subscribe to over, I think Okta did a report of over 1,000 applications. So 1,000 applications. Let's pretend that, let's just say 50% of them have a customer success manager. So now there's 500 customer success managers that are calling on different people at Progressive. And guess what? They have a customer success manager that is asking their customer success team to go have a QBR. That person goes to a QBR. How do you separate yourself in among all the QBRs that these people are going to, right? And boom, you give up these insights. You have all this information right then and there. Not only are you looking like a trusted advisor, and you've separated yourself from all these other meetings that they're meeting with other software vendors with, right? And you're standing out. And I just believe today's customer success manager needs to be able to connect dots. They need to be more analytical to review data for that person and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Is this right? Is this wrong? Because it's okay if maybe that data that got pulled in your QBR report is a little off, but it's a starting point where someone goes, well, that's not exactly true. This is what we're actually focusing on. Awesome. I don't care how I got to what the main point was, but it's that I put thought process into it in presenting something really intelligent to my point of contact at that organization. So, Zach, I love what you guys are doing. Will, what else would you add on to what Zach just said there and what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I think the two main things that we're setting out to do. The first is, I think the biggest one is that there's so many SaaS products available for go-to-market teams right now. I mean, it's part of why you have a podcast like this is that there's just so many tools available. And I think what we wanted to do is create like the Instacart, DoorDash, Uber type situation where it's something that saves you time and it's useful.
Like
so
that.
there's lots of apps that are out there that do things, but those are specifically designed to let's free up the hour and a half it was going to take you to go to the grocery store so that you can spend more time with your kids or you can work out or whatever it is. And we're trying to accomplish the same thing there. And I think the big one specifically for QBRs and just this prep is the most successful client relationships that I had were the ones where it wasn't me selling them on the things that we had. It was me sitting down and helping them understand that I truly get what they're going through. I get that they just had a drug line canceled and that manufacturing building's no longer useful. I get that there's some stress because of, price consciousness in the US around drugs. I understand all those things. And what I'm trying to show you is here's what we're going to do to help you. Not here's the things that my manager said to present to you that tell you how good we're doing. And that really is the key is if a QBR can be about, I get you, I hear where you're at, and I'm here to help you out. And maybe this quarter that's a detriment to what I'm trying to do for me personally, but next quarter it might be a benefit because you see that I'm trying to work with you. And I think that's the key.
Well, that's awesome. And both of you talk about this emotional intelligence. And I think one of the things, I'm similar to Will and Zach, I love to go work out. I know these two guys like to work out. One of the things that you first get taught when you really study this is willpower is an exhaustible energy, right? Like you only have so much willpower in a day. And so that's why you want to create habits, because then your body just consciously just starts to do things without using any energy. So that when you actually have choices presented before you, you have all your strength to actually make a good decision. But if I'm just relying on willpower for every decision, at some point we all say, oh, I'm just so exhausted, right? So I love the point is if this is doing the work for me in preparing the QBR, I can now put my emotions into empathy. I can put it into asking better questions. I can actually be present versus I've come into the call, back-to-back product trainings. I hurry and did some research on some QBR. I put some slides together. I'm so exhausted when I get in the call that I just want to present the information that I put together. I don't even listen to anybody, right? I think this also frees up that energy and that emotion to actually listen and develop that relationship. So spot on, you two, and what you're trying to accomplish and the way you're explaining. I hope customer success managers that are listening to this, that you cued into that. The energy that you put into QBRs makes you exhausted, and that keeps you from being sharp and listening. And I don't know, Will, Zach, am I off on that, or what's your thoughts on that?
No, one of the things that we all need to be aware of is that the knowledge is becoming very democratized. Data is becoming very democratized right now. Everyone can find out any question they actually have right now just by using ChatGPT, right? And by the way, every CSM is using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever. They're using these tools already. So you asked earlier, how do you separate yourself? Well, you separate yourself by asking really, really good questions and understanding the customer's pain and understanding what it is that they're going through, meeting them where they are. Part of that is understanding, do they even want this QBR, right? One thing that we often get wrong as leadership is we say everyone needs a QBR. And it's like, do they? Do they need it?
Fair.
You know, they didn't buy a CSM. They bought software. They didn't buy they may not even bought software. They probably just bought outcomes, right?
Yeah.
So you understanding how that customer wants to receive this information, how they want to talk to you, how they want to communicate with you, asking good questions. Those are going to be the ways that you can separate yourself. And the only way that you can free yourself up to think about that is to have all of that busy work done for you at this point, because you're not getting any fewer accounts. That's a fact. Customer success managers are not getting any fewer accounts. Yeah. So because of that, you need to find a way to offload a lot of that work. In fact, a lot of companies have started offloading the QBR prep to offshore teams or to their operations teams. We saw a lot of that, at Pulse when we were chatting across from you, that people are outsourcing this already to other humans. And then they get it back and, it's kind of sort of what you need. So people are like, I don't want to do this work. It's almost there. Fine. I'll send it out. The only way you're going to separate yourself is by really trying to connect with the other human on the other side of the table. And not to belabor this point, but one way that I've started to find a lot of success with this later in my career is I actually make it a little bit of a game where how long can I go without talking about work before we start the meeting. So I actually talk a lot to the person. I'm like, oh, how's life? Oh, you got kids. What do they do? Or do they like that? Do you like living here? How'd you find your way into this role? You start just asking questions about them. And then you listen, work is such a big part of all of our lives. You'll find your way back. I promise. Right. But that has started to help in my career as I was managing customers. And even now in this role, I'll talk to investors. And Will and I laugh about this all the time. I'll go to events with investors and I'm the one not talking about what SteerCo does. I would way rather talk to you about the baseball game you went to yesterday, or how you made your way from Idaho to Arizona. Like, what was that like? I would way rather talk about that. And eventually work just comes up. And that's a much more organic way to stand out than it is to just be like, all right, let me show you this chart real quick. And then you correct me. Is it right? Is it wrong? It just feels it's very transactional at that point.
Right. Yeah. If you can get down the walls where you can actually have a human interaction, right? Because everybody's like, what are you trying to pull on me? What angle are you going for? Right. So yeah, establishing that connection so that you can more fully connect when you review information and have that trust that, hey, I am just actually trying to give you honest feedback of where you're at and what I'm seeing. And that's a big part. Will, anything else you would add on this?
Yeah, I think it's important I've always viewed CSMs kind of like the huge bridge between what the sales team sold and what the client actually wants. And I think if you keep that in mind when you're driving stuff and you have the tools available to kind of automate the data and you have that, emotional capability when you're talking to them, you can really start to pick out the drivers of some of these outcomes because the data will only show you so much. Like I had a real world example where we had a platform that we sold. It still wasn't installed. Usership was down. All of the metrics that we had set were being missed. And I could have just gone in and said, hey, usership is down. You probably need more training. We'll give you the training. We'll bump it out. But when you start asking questions around, well, why is this happening? Is it because this manufacturing line cannot go down and there's only a single week that's available? Well, if that week is the week that's available, then let's set that. That's the date for the install. We'll make everyone in our company available on call to make it happen. We'll get it installed, up and running, switched over. Now we met their capabilities. We didn't hit our initial KPIs, but having that that trust gap bridge to be able to have those conversations and understand what they're going through allows you to really drive that home. And in that specific example, we got so many repeat projects out of it because they said, you're the first people that actually asked, what's our manufacturing schedule? Like, why can we not take the line down? What's going on there? It
Right.
wasn't just like, oh, you need more training. You obviously don't know what you're doing sort of thing. So that's really important, that connection and understanding that you really are that bridge between what was thrown over the fence and what the client was expecting.
Yeah, I think that's one of the principles I live by is don't assume that the customer is an idiot. You know, you all know the back chatter that you have, and you're having your customer success meetings together, and you're like, oh, this one client, he's doing this or she's doing that, and you all complain to each other and you feel better, but you didn't actually do anything different. Where you're like, hey, the first thing I teach is the person bought your software for a reason. Don't ever assume they didn't. So that intentionality of saying, hey, I know you bought the software to solve this. We haven't implemented it yet. Like, help me understand what's going on your side. There has to be something that's impeding you from doing this because I know you bought this for a reason. Well, what is that? And just having the tone, the empathy of the tone, right? It all matters. So, Will, Zach, this has been amazing. There's two last questions. The first question is, if someone wants to get in contact with you, take this for a test run, how do they do it? What should they do? Speak to that a little bit, and then I'll ask the final question that we ask every one of our guests on SaaS Therapy. But answer that one first.
Yeah, you can reach out to us. It's just, I mean, we're still so early. It's just our first name at getsteerco.com. So Zach at getsteerco.com or Will at getsteerco.com. Feel free to email us if you have any questions. We're very open to talking about, just nerding out about customer success stuff is kind of the most fun that we have. And then if you want to see what our product is doing, feel free to go to getsteerco.com. You can sign up and check us out. You don't even have to sign up. You can just check out what we're doing for free. There's hopefully calls to action all over our website that show you where to go. And if there's not, maybe just email us about that too. Because we need to figure that out.
Always
too.
welcome.
Yeah, exactly. So feel free to go to our website. Feel free to email us. And then I'm relatively sure my phone number is just out there now. So you can also just call or text me.
That's awesome. I mean, risk reward. Come on, people. Like the reward of having this be automated versus the risk of talking to these two. I know they sound scary, but they're all actually awesome people. I've really enjoyed my time meeting with them. So this is SaaS Therapy. The reason why Todd and myself named it SaaS Therapy is what we're trying to actually get to in any one of these conversations is to be vulnerable. Like the thing I can't stand about social media is everybody's out there presenting themselves. I shouldn't say everyone, excuse me. Let me go back. That was wrong in my emotional intelligence. A lot of us feel pressured to show the best of ourselves, and we're never really vulnerable. We don't really go into a therapy session where we let our guard down and actually talk about things and get real with each other and what we're trying to figure out. So that's why we named it SaaS Therapy. Todd and I always joke, though, we think we created it for ourselves. So we had a lot of issues. And so the therapy we get from the guests is amazing. But we always end with a last question, which is any therapy session, if you've had a discussion with your therapist, they always give you a challenge to work on until they meet again. So Will and Zach, if there's one challenge you could give to our audience, what would it be?
Will, you want to go first?
Yeah. I think what I would challenge everyone to do is this be a very specific one. I think it's the operations person in me, but this quarter, 5 of your customers that you have a conversation with, do a little research on what they're specifically going through that might be interesting, not related to what your product is or what it is that you're selling, just something that they're going through as a company, and bring it up in a conversation with them. Even if it's just hey, I saw this happen, congratulations, or I saw this happen. Is it something that you want to talk about, and see if that doesn't open up some doors for you. I think that would be an interesting measurable thing you could try.
Awesome. Love it, Will. Zach?
Yeah, I think for my CS leaders out there, if you're about to ask a CSM how an account is doing, pay attention to their body language when you do. Don't do it over Slack the next time. Just see what they do. And then next time your CEO or your CCO asks you how an account is doing, pay attention to where you feel that in your body and why that is. Because we all feel it. It is weirdly terrifying. I truly felt like I was one of the best CSMs that ever existed. which is maybe a little hyperbolic. I really felt like I was really good at my job. And even still, I knew my boss knew I was good at my job, and they'd say, "Hey, how's Acme Inc. doing?" I hadn't talked to them in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't really know, but I'm starting to rattle off random facts about how they're doing. And just pay attention to that, because I think that we inadvertently put undue stress on the people we manage. And it's really important that we just pay attention to what it is that we're asking, and may feel innocuous to you, but the people you hired really want to make sure they look good to you. So remember that.
It's awesome. Zach, Will, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you joining the podcast, giving all those nuggets. Again, audience, that was a masterclass in so many different aspects of life. So thank you, Will, Zach. Thank you to our audience. Again, this has been SaaS Therapy, trying to help you save your most important relationship, your clients. So thank you, Zach and Will, for joining us today.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.